Hello everyone, and welcome to game number 12. Final boss hype, boys, diggy diggy hole, and such other things. We're on the coin and we have a ringleader, so once again a really promising start. Really like that in the end we opted for the double ringleader. It's been paying off quite a bit. Looks like a fairly solid hand, but I think we can be greedy and only keep the ringleader here. I'm not sure what I decided back then, whether I kept the dwarf here or not. I don't think I would keep the dwarf. No, yeah, okay. So past me agrees with present me, and we get quite a sexy hand here. That's really nice. We get the barber option. That's probably just gonna coin the ringleader here, and then we're ready for basically anything he throws at us. If he plays a 3-2, we'll just trade in the 2 and 1 dagger up. If he plays a 2-3, we'll dagger up, trade in the 2 and a no dagger. If he doesn't play anything, we can develop the knife juggler. Okay, so the 2-3 is basically what we planned for, right? We can dagger up now, use our 2 and 1, use our face, and then go face for 2. If he had developed something with 2 HP, the knife juggler would have already hit the table, so that would have been a slight acceleration. Wouldn't have minded that, but this is still a decent start. It slows you down slightly when they have the 2 and 3, but you never mind. Pick up a card advantage there. Okay, so it looks like our 2-drop plus our dagger is going to trade with his turn 2 and turn 3. So that's fairly solid. I'm only a little bit sad that we don't have a turn 3 play here. I mean, the juggler is fine. There's no problem with playing a juggler here. So, I mean, we're gonna juggler and double trade. That's gonna happen for sure. I feel like if he had Scarlet Crusader here, the game was over. There's no way he can recover from that. Especially because you have Dagger Barber for turn 4, as we've said a couple times in the run. Having a Scarlet Crusader on turn 3, going into your opponent's turn 4, being able to deal with a 5 health creature without losing your minion, absolutely ridiculous. So, let's see. So we could Sabotage, or we could Dagger Barber trade. A very easy way to find out which one is the best. If you Sabotage here, you are left with a 3 and 2. If you Dagger Barber trade, you are left with a 3 and 2 and a 2 damage weapon. So the Barber is the tempo play here, and as you guys know, I am a fan of the tempo play. There's also a risky play that you could do. You could put the Barber down and then hope the juggle lands and eviscerates, but I feel like when you're in the driver's seat, when you are so far ahead, there is no need to risk the early game on a coin flip. Because the obvious downside of it missing is that, you know, you're not gonna eviscerate it, and you're gonna have to dagger after you barber it. You know, look like a fool. It's not necessary, right? We have a 2-drop killing a 4-drop. There is no need to get greedy about that. It's just because this deck is so strong that you could get spoiled, and you could say like, oh, do I really want to trade my knife juggler into a 4-drop? I mean, we invest 2 mana, he invested 4 mana. Well, technically it's a 3 mana trade, because once again we trade in half of the dagger, but you know, that's like a recurring thing when we're playing the 3 mana for 4 mana trade, which really helps us get on the board. Okay, looks like we're gonna have to play off curve because of our hand here. We only have even numbers, especially hero power is also an even number, and we only, you know, we're on 5 mana, so we're gonna flow the mana regardless. Now, I don't completely like what I did here. Traded, like I put the Barber in his dude in our face and then the Shredder down. I think it's still correct, but I'm probably just using hindsight. So I think the 3 damage to his face would have been pretty good. Now the reason why we trade here is, first of all, if he has a Shattered Sun Cleric and he ends up buffing the Harvest Golem, he can take out the Barber for free. It won't trade. Also, I like to use the dagger here so that next turn, if we need our dagger, it's ready. Right? If we don't dagger now, this Harvest Golem will be a 2-1 on the board next turn, and I'll have to dagger that down next turn, so my dagger will be tied up. So in case our opponent played something that we could dagger down, we wouldn't be able to do it, because our dagger would have to go into the Harvest Golem. That or the Harvest Golem would survive. So in the end, I don't really mind it. Okay, this is an interesting one. So Void Callers are usually bad things to kill. Like, you don't really want to kill them because they spawn stuff for your opponent that you don't really want to deal with. Like, you don't want to give them... Okay, so The best way of explaining this is that when you kill a Void Caller, you give your opponent a minion charge. Right? Because on his turn, the minion will have spawned and he can immediately use it. If he has a Dread Infernal in his hand and he uses his Void Caller into our Shredder and he gets a Dread Infernal, he can't attack with that. If we put our Shredder into his dude and he gets a Void and he gets a Dread Infernal, he can use a Dread Infernal immediately on his turn. So that's a huge difference, right? A 6/6 charge or a 6/6. Very big difference. Now there was a thought that went through my mind here, where we have Dark Iron Dwarf, so we could dwarf our Shredder, then eviscerate his minion, and have a 6-power minion ready to deal with the Dread Infernal. Smash it in, and then you'll have a 2-drop and a dwarf, but that's 6 phase damage that you miss. It's an eviscerate that you use on a minion rather than keeping it for burn. And we see that our opponent already tapped a little bit, so I feel like this is a trap that a lot of people fall into, is that they board control too long versus Warlocks who life tap. Warlocks that life tap need to be punished. Like, they are drawing 3 cards. You cannot outvalue someone that will draw 2 cards per turn. It is not going to happen. No matter how clean your trades are, if your opponent is drawing 2 cards a turn, you will not win the value war in the end. It might seem so for a while, but him drawing 2 cards a turn will run you out of steam. So it's a habit that I've made that when the Warlock puts the annoying minion down, I usually just I threaten his life total and essentially say, hey dude, deal with me, right? I'm not gonna deal with your dudes, you're gonna have to deal with my dudes. I'm gonna pressure your life total, so if you want to sit there and tap and get extra cards, that's fine, but I'm gonna kill you then. Right? So you have to be aggressive against Warlocks, make sure they don't get the tap. He did have the Shattered Sun Cleric, so I feel pretty good about playing around it. He gets really lucky with the Enhance, so gets double taunt. That's pretty sick. I think Divine Shield would have even been better for us, so I could keep ignoring the Void Caller. Now he's essentially gonna force us into the scenario that I spoke about, giving the opponent's minion or giving the opponent's demon charge once it pops out of the Void Caller. So an obvious play here is to put the face into the 4/1. You can see I'm still a bit reluctant to do it. It's not something that I want to do. But I feel like you have to do it. You also have Eviscerate in hand in case it's a Floating Watcher. It's a pretty clean kill, so it's fine. I think I'm debating on using my Shredder into that, because I can still use my Barber into the 3/2, but it's better to check here. And it is a Floating Watcher. Okay, so that's getting eviscerated no matter what. Our opponent's BMing a little bit. He doesn't know that we're about to clear his board. I feel like here Cultmaster's better. We draw a card. Our Shredder's gonna trade with 3/2. And we can still put the Chow down. We're roping pretty hard here. It was a pretty difficult turn. Also, still coaching here. Our draw is gonna change our line of play. We do draw backstab, so backstabbing the Enhancer mechanic is really nice. And because of that backstab draw, we choose not to play the Zombie Chow, because then we are a bit too vulnerable to a Hellfire. He would only deal... well, he wouldn't deal damage to him herself, right? He would deal 3 damage and then heal 5, so we would gain 2 health and clear our board. That's a bit too good of a Hellfire for him. He also had the Dread Infernal in the hand. He messes it up here, plays his dude first. Didn't quite like our opponent. There's a lot of things that we could have done here, and this is where I gotta ask myself if I made the right play. Alright, so what do we see here? We see a 6/6, 4/1, 2/1. I'm thinking that if we had just put our face into the 1/1, put the Force Tank down, and go 6 face, he's on 13. He uses a 1/1 in here, we draw a card. Use the 6/6 in the 4, it's fine. He's on 13, we have 7 damage here. 7 damage from the tank plus the Rocketeer is lethal, so that's pretty solid. I guess maybe I was afraid of a Siphon Soul, not pressuring my opponent enough. But I mean, there's also another play, there's a value play, where we put our 2/1 into a dude, our face into a dude, then we sabotage. He loses his 6/6, we draw a card, our Cultmaster stays alive. It's a solid play, and maybe it is the best play. Do I really want to keep the 6 and 6 alive? This is, sometimes you overanalyze stuff, especially when you know the outcome. But here, I mean, he could have? I guess he could have had a silence and then, I don't know, double PO. It's not even lethal, but is it lethal? 10, 14, no, he's one off. No, not with, no, he has perfect lethal with silence and double PO. Still don't think I should play around silence and double PO. It's a bit too situational. I don't think this play is necessarily wrong. Like, his board is perfectly clean. I'm on 14 HP. I drew a bunch of cards. I've got 2 dudes on the board. But I think maybe the force tank and just the face damage would have been slightly better. We'll see what our opponent does here. Puts down another floating watcher. And the fairy dragon. He's not gonna tap. If he had tapped, he was dead. Okay, so this is the turn where we can also debate a little bit. I don't think we necessarily did it wrong. I suppose we didn't need any further cards from the Cult Master, so I guess putting the Cult into the Floating Watcher and the Drake into the 3 and 2 would have been okay. Now we do have a Barber in the hand and we're on 14 health, so we're gonna up to Dagger, Barber, use our face into the Fairy Dragon. I have still a hard time to determine whether that's right or wrong. It's such an autopilot move and it's so strong, but you know, you could also say, did we really need extra board control there? We could have just hit. On the other hand, if we do that move, we're not connecting for 4 extra phase, so then I'm kind of talking against myself. You guys will see why I'm really analyzing this in depth. Some people have seen it live. It's sometimes, you know, you win or you lose a game, and you play it correct or you play it wrong. You know, let's say that you just lost the game, but you played it 100% correct. You shouldn't change anything, right? Sometimes you just get, you know, your opponent has a bad beat. Sometimes you play really wrong and you win anyway. That doesn't mean you need to keep playing wrong. That means you got lucky and you know your opponent messed up, or you just had good luck after playing wrong. But I think this is fair, really. I think the only thing I could have done here was sack the Cult Master, play a bit more around Hellfire, play around Mind Control Tech. But you see why I'm analyzing this so in depth. These small things where I normally wouldn't pay attention to. He's gonna Deathwing us. It's unfortunate on 11-0 when the game is basically won, and now we have only 7 damage and we are 4 damage off lethal with complete board control gone to Deathwing. It's always so demoralizing. So I don't think we made a mistake. Especially like drop me a comment below the video, guys. Let me know what you think. Did we mess it up? Should we have not taken the extra 2 damage? You know, make sure you rewind the video, look at the board state in depth. Remind yourself, if we don't take the extra 3 damage from the Drake, we are not connecting for 4 damage with our Azure Drake. I think the one mistake that I pointed out was we should have sacked the Cult Master. We had enough board control. I don't even think the turn where we sabotaged the Dread Infernal, it was wrong. We drew a card, we cleaned his board, I had 8 power on the board. We took minimal phase damage, we killed a 1-on-1, so I don't think there was any problem there. You can see that we are analyzing the game. I always like to do that. When the game is over, I just like to really think about it, like what could we have done? Of course it's more difficult because I didn't have the replay at hand there, but now that I analyzed the game further, I don't think we made a mistake. The only thing you could like still talk about is whether we should have used that Auto Barber in his face or whether we should have used the Auto Barber to kill his Harvest Golem. He did have the Shattered Sun Cleric punish, so honestly guys, I think this is just a case of over-analyzing a game that we played well and our opponent had a Deathwing, right? Your opponent is usually not gonna have a Deathwing, and I don't think you should play around Deathwing unless you're like super far ahead, which maybe we were. Maybe we were far enough ahead to play around the Deathwing. But then you don't deal the phase damage. Sure, you're on 15 health versus Deathwing. He Deathwings you. He is on 15 HP. He taps next turn. You don't have lethal. I don't think you win either way, guys. So anyways, this was the 12th game. A bit sad we didn't get 12-0 the Dream, but still, you know, really solid run. And hey, that's good for us. That means that there is a 13th game coming up, so make sure you stick around for that one. That's gonna be up tomorrow. See if we have lucky number 13, if we can close it out, or whether we will need another game. Alright guys, I will see you there.